The CEO of Meridian Hotels stood motionless in his penthouse office, staring at the crayon-written note in his hand. The words were shaky, spelled phonetically, written by a child who'd tried so hard to get them right. Please don't fear my mommy. She didn't sleep so we could eat. Below it, a drawing, a stick figure woman with yellow hair, holding the hands of two smaller stick figures. All three were smiling, though the woman's smile was crooked, tilted, like whoever drew it understood smiles could be tired. Richard Chun set the note down carefully on his mahogany desk. His hands were shaking. He pressed the intercom. Maria, please send up the head of housekeeping. Immediately. 48 hours earlier, Sarah Mitchell's alarm didn't sound at 4:15 a.m. because she'd never fallen asleep. She lay in the dark of the one-bedroom apartment she shared with her two sons, listening to 7-year-old Danny breathe in the twin bed across the room. 4-year-old Lucas slept in the bedroom. She'd given him the only private space because he still had nightmares about his father leaving. Her body ached before she moved. The kind of exhaustion that lives in bone marrow, that no amount of rest could touch anymore. She was 34 but felt ancient. She dressed in the bathroom by the glow of her phone screen to save on the electric bill. The same black uniform, pressed carefully last night despite her exhaustion, because appearance mattered at Meridian Hotels. Her shoes were falling apart inside. The insoles compressed to nothing, but new shoes cost money she needed for Danny's field trip permission slip. The babysitter arrived at 4:45, Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs, who charged half what she should because she remembered what it was like to be a single mom. Sarah kissed both boys while they slept, breathing in their shampoo smell, storing it up for the long day ahead. 2 buses. 45 minutes of watching the city transform from sleeping to waking. Sarah always stood. Even when seats were available, she stood, because sitting made it harder to get moving again. The Meridian Hotel rose 47 stories above downtown, glass and steel and polished perfection. Sarah entered through the service entrance in the basement garage, the entrance reserved for people who kept the hotel perfect but could never afford to stay there. The housekeeping locker room smelled like industrial detergent and tired women. Sarah changed into her work uniform, pinning her name tag precisely 2 inches below her collar. Meridian standards, always. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chun, was already doing room assignments. Mitchell, you've got floors 32 through 35. 18 rooms. For checkouts need priority, cleaning by 9. 18 rooms. Sarah's record was 16 and a shift, and she'd nearly collapsed that day. But she nodded. Yes, ma'am. Her cart weighed 60 pounds when fully loaded. Sarah pushed it to the service elevator, her shoulders already protesting. A hotel guest entered just before the doors closed. A man in a designer suit, typing on his phone. He didn't look up. Didn't see her. She was furniture to him. Part of the infrastructure. Room 3201 was a disaster. A business traveler who'd clearly hosted an unauthorized party. Bottles everywhere. Towels on the floor. Bathroom mirror splattered with something Sarah didn't want to identify. She cleaned methodically, perfectly, because at Meridian Hotels, perfection was the only acceptable standard. 45 minutes per disaster room. She was already behind schedule. Her phone buzzed at 8:30. A text from Mrs. Rodriguez. Danny has a fever. 101. Should I give him medicine? Sarah's chest tightened. Danny had been fighting something all week, but she couldn't afford to miss work. Not with $300 still due on last month's rent. She texted back. Yes. The children's Tylenol in the bathroom cabinet. Thank you. Then she pushed her car to the next room. By noon, Sarah had cleaned 12 rooms. Her hands were cracked and bleeding. The hotel's industrial cleaning solution. Stripped skin like sandpaper, and she couldn't afford the good gloves. She ate lunch standing in the housekeeping supply closet. A peanut butter sandwich she'd made at 4:30 that morning, now warm and slightly soggy. The afternoon shift supervisor found her there. Mitchell, we need you to stay late. Night shift called in sick. For hours overtime. For hours would mean not seeing the boys awake. Would mean putting them to bed by phone. Lucas crying because she'd promised to help with his alphabet. But 4 hours of overtime was $60. $60 was groceries for 5 days. Yes, ma'am, Sarah said. She texted Mrs. Rodriguez. I'm so sorry. Can you stay until 10? The reply came quickly. Of course, Mija. Don't worry. But Sarah always worried. At 3 p.m., while cleaning a suite on the 42nd floor, Sarah's vision blurred. She gripped the bathroom counter, waiting for the dizziness to pass. When had she last eaten a real meal? Yesterday's lunch? The day before? She splashed cold water on her face and kept working. The executive floors were different. Thicker carpets, real artwork, fresh flowers in every hallway. Sarah cleaned the administrative corridor at 7 p.m. after the executives had gone home. She moved like a ghost through offices where people made in an hour what she made in a week. The CEO's office door was ajar. Sarah knew she shouldn't enter. Executive offices were supposed to be cleaned by the senior staff. But the trash was overflowing, and her supervisor always said, "If you see work that needs doing, do it." She pushed her cart inside quietly. The office was bigger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, lights spreading like stars. Sarah allowed herself 10 seconds to look, to imagine what it felt like to belong in a space like this. Then she emptied the trash and moved on. At 9:45 p.m., Sarah finally clocked out. Her feet were screaming. Her back felt broken. She'd cleaned 23 rooms, a personal record that would earn her nothing but the knowledge that she could survive anything. The bus home was mostly empty. Sarah sat this time, too exhausted to stand. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Danny's school and a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. "He's asking for you. Says his throat hurts." Guilt crashed over her like a wave. When Sarah finally climbed the 3 flights to her apartment at 10:40 p.m., Mrs. Rodriguez met her at the door. "He's sleeping now," the older woman said gently. "But Sarah, Mija, he needs to see a doctor." "I know. On Friday. My paycheck comes Friday." Mrs. Rodriguez touched her arm. "You need to sleep too." But sleep was a luxury Sarah couldn't afford. After Mrs. Rodriguez left, Sarah checked on both boys. Danny was warm but breathing steadily. Lucas curled around his stuffed elephant. She stood in their doorway for 5 minutes, just watching them, storing up these moments. Then she went to the kitchen and began packing tomorrow's lunches with the last of the bread and peanut butter. While the coffee maker gurgled, "Tomorrow's fuel," she opened the envelope that had come in today's mail. Final notice. The landlord was raising rent by $200. Sarah read the letter 3 times, as if the words might change. They didn't. She did the math in her head. Rent, utilities, food, childcare, bus fare. There was no room for $200 more. There was barely room for what she already paid. At midnight, Sarah finally sat at the tiny kitchen table and put her head in her hands. She didn't cry. She'd learned years ago that crying used energy she couldn't spare. But she let herself feel the weight of it all, just for a moment. The weight of invisibility. Of working until her body broke and still falling short. Of being a ghost in other people's lives while trying to be everything in her son's lives. Danny appeared in the hallway, his small face flushed with fever. "Mama, your hands are bleeding." Sarah quickly hid her cracked, raw hands under the table. "It's nothing, baby. Just some dry skin. Why are you awake?" Danny shuffled closer, his bare feet making soft sounds on the worn linoleum. In the dim kitchen light, he looked impossibly small, his Spider-Man pajamas hanging loose on his thin frame. "My throat hurts. And I had a bad dream." He climbed into her lap, all fever-warm limbs and trust. "I dreamed you went away like Daddy did." Sarah's heart cracked. She wrapped her arms around him carefully, aware of how fragile everything felt. His body, her resolve, their little family held together with prayer and peanut butter. "I'm never leaving you," she whispered into his hair. "Never. I promise. Even if we don't have money?" The question hit her like a fist. "Who told you we don't have money?" "I heard you talking to Mrs. Rodriguez. About the rent. And Lucas told me his friend Tyler said we're poor because I bring the same lunch every day." Danny pulled back to look at her, his eyes too serious for 7. "Are we poor, Mama?" Sarah thought about lying. But Danny was smart. And he deserved truth even when truth was hard. "We don't have extra money, baby. But we have what matters. We have each other. And we have a home. And we have food to eat. Some people don't have those things. But your hands hurt. And you're always tired. And you never sleep." His voice got smaller. "Is it because of me and Lucas? Because you have to take care of us?" "Danny, no. I could get a job," he said seriously. "I could help. I'm good at math." "Maybe I could." Daniel James Mitchell. Sarah turned him to face her, holding his small shoulders. "You listen to me. You are 7 years old. Your only job is to be 7. To go to school and play with her friends and be a kid. Taking care of you and Lucas isn't a burden. It's the best thing I've ever done. The only thing I've ever done that matters. But you're sad. I'm tired. That's different. Sarah smiled, meaning it. When I see you and your brother, I'm not tired anymore. You give me energy, baby. You're what keeps me going. Danny studied her face for a long moment. Then he hugged her tightly, his small arms surprisingly strong. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. So much. Sarah held him until his breathing deepened, until his body grew heavy with sleep. Then she carried him back to bed. Tucking the blanket around him with bleeding hands, she tried to keep gentle. At 3 a.m., Sarah gave up on sleep entirely. She sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of bills, running the same impossible math over and over, hoping for a different answer. It never came. She had one option: ask for extra shifts. More overtime. Maybe she could clean houses on her days off. Rich people always needed cleaners, and she could charge cash, save on taxes. It would mean seeing the boys even less. Would mean running her body into the ground. But what choice did she have? At 4:15, Sarah dressed in yesterday's uniform. No time to wash it. No money to run the laundry machines. She left a note for the boys. Good morning, my loves. Danny, take your medicine. Lucas, practice your letters. I'll call it lunch. Love you to the moon. Mama, the morning shift was chaos. 2 room attendants had quit overnight, leaving the entire housekeeping staff scrambling to cover their rooms. Sarah was assigned 30 rooms across 6 floors. 30 rooms. It was impossible, but she nodded and loaded her cart. By noon, she'd cleaned 18 rooms and was moving on muscle memory alone. Her supervisor found her in the hallway on 438, swaying slightly as she pushed her cart. Mitchell, you okay? Yes, ma'am. Just tired. The supervisor studied her. When's the last time you ate? Sarah thought about the half sandwich yesterday. This morning. That's a lie, but I'll pretend I believe you. The woman pulled a protein bar from her pocket. Eat this. I can't have you passing out on my shift. Workers' comp is a nightmare. Sarah ate the bar in 3 bites, tasting nothing. Thank you. How many rooms you got left? 12. The supervisor winced. I'll send Lopez to help with 6. But Mitchell, she hesitated. You've been picking up a lot of extra shifts. You okay? Money trouble. Sarah kept her face neutral. I'm fine. Just saving up. Another lie. She was drowning, but admitting it felt like failure. That afternoon, while cleaning a suite on 445, Sarah's phone rang. Danny's school. Ms. Mitchell? This is the nurse. Danny's fever is higher, 103. He needs to be picked up. Sarah's stomach dropped. I can't. I'm at work. Can he stay in the nurse's office until, ma'am, he needs to see a doctor? Today, the fever isn't breaking, and he's complaining of severe throat pain. It could be strep. Sarah looked at the half-cleaned room. The 11 rooms still waiting, the supervisor who'd already done her a favor. Missing work meant losing pay. Might mean losing her job. But Danny needed her. I'll be there in an hour, she said. She found her supervisor and explained. The woman's face was sympathetic but firm. Mitchell, you've called out twice this month already. You leave today, that's 3. 3 call-outs is grounds for termination. You know the policy. My son has a 103 fever, I understand. I'm a mother too. But I don't make the rules. She softened slightly. Look, I'll mark you down as leaving for a family emergency. That's not quite a call-out. But Sarah, I can't keep protecting you. The executives are cracking down on attendance. You miss one more day, I can't help you. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. Thank you. She took 2 buses to Danny's school, then to the urgent care clinic, then to the pharmacy, then home. For hours. For hours of unpaid time she couldn't afford, spent in waiting rooms and holding her feverish son while a doctor diagnosed strep throat and prescribed antibiotics. The medicine cost $45. Sarah handed over the money and recalculated everything in her head. That was groceries. That was the electric bill. That was worth it, because Danny needed to get better. At home, she got both boys settled, Lucas with coloring books, Danny with medicine and his favorite blanket. She made them grilled cheese sandwiches with the last of the cheese and bread, then told them she'd be in the kitchen working on something important. But you just got home, Lucas protested. I know, baby. But Mama needs to take care of something. I'll check on you in a little bit, okay? She couldn't sit still. Couldn't rest. Her mind spun through scenarios, each one worse than the last. She thought about asking Mrs. Rodriguez for a loan. But Mrs. Rodriguez had less than she did. Thought about calling her sister, but they hadn't spoken since the argument about Sarah's ex-husband 2 years ago. She was alone in this, had been alone since the day her husband walked out, saying he wasn't cut out for family life. Sarah pulled out paper and crayons, supplies she'd gotten from a school donation drive, and began to write a letter to the landlord, asking for more time on the rent increase. Her handwriting was shaky from exhaustion, and the words sounded desperate even to her. "Mama, what are you writing?" She looked up. Danny stood in the kitchen doorway, wrapped in his blanket, his face still flushed. "Just a letter, baby. Nothing for you to worry about." Danny came closer, looking at the paper. He was quiet for a long moment. "Mama, is this about money again?" "Danny, I want to help." His voice was small but determined. "Please let me help." "Baby, you can't. I can write a letter too. A better one. Please." Sarah started to refuse, but something in his face stopped her. He looked so serious, so desperate to do something, anything, to make things easier for her. "Okay," she said finally. "You can write a letter if you want." She gave him paper and crayons, expecting him to write something to the landlord. Instead, Danny carefully carried the supplies to his room. Through the crack in the door, she heard him and Lucas talking in whispers. An hour later, Danny emerged with a folded piece of paper. "Can you take this to your work?" he asked. "To the boss person?" "Danny, I don't think." "Please, Mama. Just try. Maybe if the boss knows you're really good at your job, they won't fire you. And then you won't be so worried." Sarah's vision blurred. "Who said anyone's firing me? I heard you tell Mrs. Rodriguez you might lose your job if you miss more days." Danny's eyes filled with tears. "But you missed today because of me. So it's my fault. And I want to fix it." Sarah pulled Danny into her arms, her heart shattering. "Baby, no. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. But if I hadn't gotten sick, then I'd be worried about something else, because that's what moms do. We worry. But Danny, I would choose you and Lucas over any job, every single time. Do you understand me? Every single time." Danny nodded against her shoulder, but she felt his tears soaking through her shirt. When he finally pulled back, he pushed the folded paper into her hands. "Please just take it to work. Please." Sarah looked at the crayon-written words on the outside. "For the boss." She couldn't imagine what her 7-year-old thought he could say that would make any difference. But she folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her bag. "Okay, I'll take it." The next morning, Sarah arrived at work early, before her shift started. She went to the executive floor, which was empty at 5 a.m. The CEO's office door was locked, but there was a mail slot where executives received interdepartmental correspondence. Sarah pulled out Danny's letter. She shouldn't do this. It was inappropriate, probably against protocol. The CEO didn't care about housekeeping staff or their problems. But she'd promised Danny. She slipped the letter through the slot and walked away. 30 hours later, Richard Chun, CEO of Meridian Hotels, arrived at his office at 6 a.m. as always. He'd built this company from 3 properties to 47 locations worldwide, and he'd done it through attention to detail and long hours. His assistant had left a morning mail on his desk. Contracts, reports, proposals, and one piece of paper that looked different from the rest, crayon on white paper, folded carefully. Richard almost threw it away. Then he saw the handwriting. "For the boss. Please read this." Curious, he unfolded it. The message was written in shaky letters, with several crossouts and corrections. Below it, a drawing of a woman holding hands with 2 children. "Please don't fear my mommy. She didn't sleep so we could eat. She has cracked hands and she cries at night, but she says she's not sad. She works really hard and cleans everything perfect. She says her boss might fear her because she had to take me to the doctor, but I was really sick, I promise. It's not her fault. Please don't fear her. We need her. Her name is Sarah Mitchell. She's the best mommy and the best cleaner. Please give her another chance. Danny, age 7. Richard read it 3 times. Then he pressed the intercom. "Maria, give me the head of housekeeping." Now, 10 minutes later, Mrs. Chin entered his office. Richard handed her the note. She read it, her expression shifting from confusion to recognition. "Sarah Mitchell. She's one of our room attendants. Good worker, never complains. She's had some attendance issues lately, but attendance issues." Richard's voice was sharp. "What kind?" "She's called out a few times. Left early once for a family emergency. She's technically on probation. She left early to take her sick son to the doctor. Ah, yes, sir. According to the supervisor's notes. Richard stood, moving to the window. Below, the city was waking up, people rushing to jobs, to lives, to responsibilities. Somewhere down there, a woman named Sarah Mitchell was probably on a bus, exhausted and terrified, wondering if today was the day she'd lose everything. How much do we pay room attendants? He asked. Starting wage is $15 per hour. With Mitchell's seniority, she's at $16.50. Richard did the math. Full-time at $16.50 was roughly $34,000 a year before taxes. In this city, with 2 children, that was barely survival. She's been here how long? For years. For years of cleaning rooms to perfection, of being invisible to guests, of bleeding into her work so her children could eat. For years, and she'd never been promoted, never been seen. I want her personnel file, and I want to meet her. Today, Mrs. Chen hesitated. Sir, if this is about the attendance issues, I should mention that your policy is putting a single mother on probation for taking care of her sick child. Richard's voice was ice. Get me your file. And while you're at it, pull files on all our housekeeping staff. I want to see wages, benefits, promotion history for the last 5 years. Sir, that wasn't a request. Mrs. Chun left quickly. Richard sat at his desk, Danny's letter in his hands. He thought about his own childhood, his mother working 3 jobs after his father died, her hands always red and cracked from dish soap and cleaning chemicals. He remembered being 10 years old and finding her crying in the bathroom, exhausted and hopeless. He'd built this company to create something different, to be better. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped paying attention to the people at the foundation of everything he'd built. Sarah Mitchell's file arrived within an hour. Richard read through it carefully. For years of perfect performance reviews, multiple commendations from guests and supervisors. Never late until 6 months ago. The attendance issues had started then. 3 sick days, 2 early departures. Richard flipped to her emergency contact information. 2 children listed, Daniel, age 7, and Lucas, age 4. No spouse or partner listed. Under relationship status, someone had written single. He picked up his phone and called the head of human resources. I need you to research the cost of living in this city for a single parent with 2 children. Factor in rent, childcare, food, healthcare, transportation. I want those numbers in an hour. Sir, may I ask why? You may not. The numbers came back and confirmed what Richard already knew. It was impossible. A person couldn't live with dignity on what Meridian Hotels paid its housekeeping staff. Not in this city. Not with children. At 2 p.m., Richard had Mrs. Chun bring Sarah Mitchell to his office. Sarah entered like someone expecting execution. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, her name tag precisely placed, but her face was pale, her hands raw and cracked. She stood by the door, not daring to sit. Ms. Mitchell, please sit down. She perched on the edge of the chair, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Richard noticed she was trying to hide her hands. He picked up Danny's letter. I received something from your son. Sarah's face flooded with color. Sarah, I'm so sorry. That was inappropriate. I shouldn't have. He wanted me to bring it. But I should have explained to him that. He asked me not to fire you. Sarah went silent. Her eyes filling with tears she clearly refused to let fall. Richard continued, his voice gentle. He said you didn't sleep so your children could eat. Is that true? Sir, Ms. Mitchell, I'm not asking as your employer. I'm asking as someone who needs to understand what's happening in my company. Is it true that you're working yourself to exhaustion just to feed your children? Sarah's composure cracked slightly. I'm managing, sir. I just need to pick up more shifts. I can do better. I won't miss any more days, I promise. Please don't fire me. I'll work harder. You're already working yourself to death. Richard set the letter down carefully. Your son is 7 years old, and he's terrified he's going to lose you. Not because you're sick or in danger, but because you're so exhausted from trying to survive on what we pay you that he thinks you might disappear. Does that sound right to you? Sir, I'm grateful for this job. That's not what I asked. Sarah met his eyes for the first time, and Richard saw something there he recognized, the trapped desperation of someone who'd run out of options. No, she whispered. It's not right, but it's what I have. Richard nodded. Ms. Mitchell, I'm not firing you. I'm promoting you. Effective immediately, You're the new manager of guest services quality assurance. Your job will be to evaluate our housekeeping standards and guest satisfaction protocols. Salary is $68,000 annually, full benefits, health insurance that covers your entire family, and normal business hours so you can be home with her children at night. Sarah stared at him. I don't understand. I'm also issuing you a retroactive raise for the last 4 years. The raise you should have received based on your performance, but didn't because our promotion system is clearly broken. That's approximately $12,000, which will be in your next paycheck. Additionally, I'm authorizing an immediate $5,000 bonus for exemplary service. Sir, I'm a room attendant. I clean toilets. I don't have a college degree, or you have 4 years of perfect service in one of the hardest jobs in this building. You have the respect of every person you work with, and you have the dedication to work until your hands bleed so your children can eat. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Richard leaned forward. Ms. Mitchell, I built this company. I know every inch of it. But I lost sight of the people who actually make it run. You reminded me what matters. Let me fix this. Sarah's tears finally fell. I don't. Why are you doing this? Because your son asked me to. Richard smiled. And because my mother was you, 30 years ago, working 3 jobs, bleeding into her work, invisible to everyone. Nobody helped her. She died at 53, exhausted and used up. I can't save her, but I can help you, and I can fix the system that made this possible. He stood, extending his hand. So, Ms. Mitchell, do you accept? Sarah rose shakily and took his hand. Her grip was strong despite the cracked skin. Yes, she whispered. Thank you. Thank you. Thank your son. He's a remarkable writer. Sarah laughed through her tears. He is, isn't he? That evening, Sarah Mitchell left Meridian Hotels through the front entrance for the first time in 4 years. She rode the bus home not because she was too exhausted to stand, but because she was crying too hard to see straight. When she opened the apartment door, both boys rushed to her. Did you get fired? Danny asked, his eyes wide with worry. Sarah knelt down and pulled them both into her arms. No, baby. I didn't get fired. Your letter worked. It really, really worked. What do you mean? I mean, Mama has a new job. A better job. I mean, we're going to be okay now. More than okay. Lucas looked up at her. Does that mean you'll sleep now? Sarah laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Yes, baby. That means I'll sleep now. That night, after tucking both boys into bed, Sarah sat at the kitchen table and spread out her bills. She did the math 3 times, just to be sure. For the first time in 4 years, the numbers worked. She thought about Richard Chen's mother, about all the single mothers working invisible jobs in every city, about how close she'd come to breaking. She thought about Danny's crayon-written letter and how one small voice had changed everything. Then Sarah Mitchell, former room attendant, future manager of guest services quality assurance, mother of 2 remarkable boys, allowed herself to cry. Not from exhaustion or fear, but from relief and gratitude and hope. And when she finally went to bed, at 10 p.m. instead of 2 a.m., she slept. She slept deeply, peacefully, knowing that tomorrow she would wake up and her children would still eat, and her hands would heal, and for the first time in so long, everything was going to be okay.